Продовжуємо робочий день у прес-центрі Українського кризового медіа-центру про оперативну інформацію.
So we continue our work in the Ukraine Crisis Media Center. So now Operation Information about the security information in Ukraine and the OSCE activities. Mr. Hook, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, dear friends. Many members of our team are still coming to terms with the loss of our friend and colleague, Joseph Stone. I know that many of you have been following how events have unfolded over the course of the past 6 days, but I will take a moment to review for you what happened. Around 11:20 in the morning on Sunday, one of our teams consisting of 2 armored vehicles with 6 members in total was returning from a patrol during which they were monitoring the security situation and flying one of our mini unmanned aerial vehicles. The route they drove over the course of their patrolling was part of their plan and had in fact been used the previous day as well. While driving back on the same road they had driven on less than 2 hours earlier, the vehicle carrying Joseph and our 2 other colleagues hit a powerful explosive device. We do not have the full details about what caused these explosions. However, it is likely a mine. This was an explosion powerful enough to displace a 4.5-ton vehicle 7 meters away from where it was hit, where it caught fire and was completely destroyed. 2 of our colleagues, the Czech and German monitors, survived. Joseph did not. Our 2 colleagues have been treated for their physical injuries and will continue to receive care and attention as we move forward. Joseph's remains will soon be returned home to his family so that they can lay him to rest. Let me be clear with you, what happened on Sunday was not an accident. It was the use of an indiscriminate weapon. An indiscriminate weapon that should never have been there in the first place. A weapon intentionally placed in that location to injure, maim, or kill someone. But because of the indiscriminate nature of it, that someone could have been any of the people who traveled on that road every day. This time it killed Joseph. Sadly, Joseph is not alone. The trends on deaths and injuries related to mines in Donbass are far from encouraging. Since the beginning of 2016, the OSCE SMM has recorded and verified 141 cases of civilian casualties related to mines, unexploded ordnance, or improvised explosive devices. That is 96 people injured and 45 deaths, both adults and children. 141 people whose lives have been permanently changed because of broken promises by those who have agreed in Minsk to put an end to this violence. These broken promises are compounded by the disgraceful assertions that somehow the OSCE is to blame for the death of our colleague. That the patrol should never have been in that location, or that they were somehow violating our mandate. Dear friends, our mandate is absolutely clear. We are meant to have full and unhindered access everywhere with no exceptions. The responsibilities of those continue to prevent peace from taking root are obvious as well. Remove all mines and do not lay new ones, which they have explicitly agreed to. They have failed and they are to blame. They must be brought to justice. Here and elsewhere, the OSCE has called for the removal of mines, unexploded ordnance, and other remnants of war. And where that is not possible, we have demanded repeatedly that contaminated areas should be mapped, marked, and fenced off. Investigations are underway. There are a number of entities examining the events of Sunday. For our purposes, the OSCE SMM is conducting an internal assessment. We welcome the announcement by the OSCE Secretary General of an investigation, and we will cooperate with this process. Understanding exactly what happened and why is important for several reasons. It is important for us to assess our security measures for our teams. It is important so that those involved and their loved ones can come to terms with what happened. And it is important so that those who are to blame can be held accountable for their actions. The security of SMM members on patrol is essential to monitoring ceasefire violations. Last week, though many such violations were recorded by the mission's cameras or observed from its offices and accommodations, about 50% of the total was observed by monitors on patrol. Most of the ceasefire violations recorded by the SMM last week occurred in 4 hotspots. Around 1/3 in the Avdiivka, Yasinowata, Donetsk airport triangle. About 25% in the Popasna, Troitsky, Pervomaisk area. And most of the remainder in areas south of Svetlodarsk and east of Mariupol. For the 4th week in a row now, speaking of the week of 17th to 23rd of April, the Special Monitoring Mission observed a reduction in the level of violence. However, this decrease in violence observed last week was minimal, only about 10%. Last week, for the second week in a row, the reduction was most notable in terms of the use of Minsk-proscribed weapons, namely tanks, mortar, artillery, including multiple launch rocket systems. Last week, we recorded about 55% fewer explosions attributable to proscribed weapons compared with the previous week. Despite the decrease in the level of violence, the SMM again observed damage to civilian property as the result of ceasefire violations in populated areas on both sides of the contact line. And despite the reduced use of Minsk-proscribed weapons, the SMM observed weapons in violation of withdrawal lines 85 times, more than double the number observed the previous week. Now, whether this lower level of violence has extended beyond the weekend is difficult to assess, as the mission initially conducted limited patrolling in the wake of Sunday's events. Already this week, however, we have observed over 1,000 explosions, as well as both ceasefire violations and impact sites in the area near Stanica Luhanska Bridge, from where the sites are committed to disengaging their forces and hardware. As we resumed patrolling on Tuesday this week, we did so with some limitations on how our teams operate. At the moment, we only patrol on solid ground, which means asphalted or concrete roads. This will, of course, restrict our abilities to visit certain locations, villages, areas close to the contact line, some weapon storage facilities, and other areas will not be accessible for us for the time being. As a result, there will be fewer facts monitored and reported by the SMM. Dear friends, as an organization guided by transparency, as facts become clear to us about the events on Sunday, we will share them with you. I am ready to answer any questions you may have. However, there are likely details I cannot share at this time, so I ask for your understanding.
Дякую, пане Хук.
Thank you.
Колеги, якщо у вас
Thank you, Mr. Hook. Dear colleagues, should you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. Please do introduce yourself before you do that. Thank you, Ilya Polomarenko, Kyiv Post.
His body is still in Ukraine. Thank you.
Preparations are underway to repatriate the remains of Joseph.
Crimea News, I would like to clarify on whether near the impact site any mines or other explosive devices have been detected. This is the first question I would like to ask. And has the so-called LPR site demined, well, at least the area in the vicinity of the incident area? So are there any practical measures taken to the mining? Thank you.
Thank you. The SMM is not involved in mine action. We have observed along the contact line limited mine action activities by those who should undertake these actions. Any such activity that we observe will be reported and are available to the public on our website in 3 languages. Thank you.
Дякую.
Thank you, Mr. Hug. The next briefing of the SMMOC will happen on the next Friday, so should you have any questions to Mr. Hug, please proceed individually and ask them. Thank you very much.